Okay. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you guys are logging in. Nelson, as he mentioned, I'm logging in from Vancouver, Canada. So it's good morning here. Uh, I guess now that we are working from home and learning online, and I absolutely echo Emma's sentiment about embracing my inner geek, not so inner actually in my case. That there's one question that I am really curious, and I think we are coming from HR and I come from an L&D perspective is how do you know how well your people are actually learning and to everybody's point about how they're applying what they learn in their work. And so that is a question that I've been always very curious about, but now more than ever. And I think this is where learning analytics is going to answer this question. Um, Okay, so first of all, I want to explain a little bit about what learning analytics is. A couple of our presenters, I think Brandon and Emma talk about we need to get better at data. So learning analytics is all about how do we measure, collect, analyze, and reporting these data that has to do with our learners and also about how do you understand the learning interactions. Like the goal of learning analytics is really about the ability for us to be able to interpret that data and to turn it into meaningful insights that we can actually feed it back to our staff. Um, so if you, I like to use an example. If you think about your online shopping experience, like when you go to Amazon and you purchase a book, you browse the catalog, you perhaps create a wish list of books. You post a review of about a book you just read or comment on somebody else's review. These are lots of data points generated by you, and it says something about you and the interactions you have on this site, right? So that's so apply that into learning. We also interact and leave a log of what we call learning traces. So now that we know what learning analytics is, why should you care about it? Well, first of all, we all know that we lived in a world of data. In HR and in L&D, we've been using lots of technologies now. We have different platforms. I think Bob talks about what is it? Electronic performance support systems. In the e-learning world, we use learning management systems or LMS. We have learning experience platform. We get informal learning. We get even here, I'm just looking over at the Q&A in the chat. There's lots of data from there, just in terms of the dialogues that we put out there. This session is being recorded, so these are all data points and that we create. So it is really useful if we can apply learning analytics to help us understand and make decisions, especially that are decisions that are informed by evidence and informed by data. And as a result of that, it would help us also to allocate resources more wisely. Questions like, are people even utilizing these resources, right? Are your courses or your performance support aiming at the right level? Are they too easy for your staff, or are they too difficult? Are people even engaged in the process? And particularly insightful, I think it's identify where the tricky spots are, where people are having troubles. Like if your people are not performing, are not processing the information that you put out there. Where can you put more support for them? Where do you need to give more feedback? It is very difficult, especially now we're all learning at home, to feel like we're on our own, we don't get any feedback, especially we don't get any just-in-time feedback at a moment of need, as Bob would talk about. So I think this is where learning analytics comes into play, and this is why you should care about it. And lastly, I think we get an opportunity here to provide more personalized experience. To get back to my Amazon purchasing experience, to think about like when you're looking at books, when you're interacting on their website, to be able to get more accurate book recommendations to you. So that's the type of personalized experience that we see in a lot of e-commerce sites that we're seeing increasing in the learning world as well. And so I think that additional question is, why should you care about it now? I think we all understand and experience this is a very interesting time because everything has moved online. L&D and HR are slow moving. So this actually gives us an opportunity to see this is now the world's biggest A/B testing when everything is online and you are actually getting data that are just everywhere. There's no excuse not to measure it. I think L&D historically been not the best in terms of measuring and making use of data. And by data, I also want to emphasize I want to emphasize that it's not just quantitative, but also qualitative data. Okay. And the other point is we have now the maturity of technology to help measure it. There's a lot more plug and play neural learning technology platforms. A lot of them already come with some sort of learning analytics. And when we are doing informal training, there should be a way to also triangulate that data points and to make it come together and make sense of and get insights on a bigger picture. And finally, I think nowadays, there's more need for people to reskill and upskill quickly. As we see jobs are being displaced quickly, or a component of your jobs are being displaced. What can you do about it? There's an example in Ontario here, out east in Ontario, where the government is trying to recruit and retrain temporarily our job librarians into home care assistants. So to think about how you can pivot and how you can train people from one type of job and quite a different sets of competencies into something different. And how do you, if anything else, I think, to be able to perform home care assistant type of work, you need to make sure that you have the required skills and the competency to do it. So learning analytics is going to help support that move. And now things are changing very quickly. So I think there's a place for measuring data more than ever. And finally, I think now we have to justify our costs and our spending, especially post-pandemic. I can see everything is going to be much leaner and trimmer. So I think able to justify our expenses and where we put more resources, we can use data to support our argument as well. So this is pretty much my presentation here. I hope this will inspire and encourage you to look into learning analytics, and feel free to connect with me. Happy to talk more about it after this presentation.